Hey friends, there's a new podcast from Spoke Media and the creators of Harry Potter and the Sacred Text called Hot and Bothered, where they treat romance novels as feminist texts, primarily written by women, for women, and about female pleasure. In one of her darkest moments, host Vanessa Zoltan turned to romance novels for comfort and joy. We know the feeling. And the process of writing her own romance novel changed her life because, to her, writing romance is a sacred practice. Now she's encouraging all of her friends to write their own romance novels. You can follow along and write a romance novel of your own with regular assignments from novelist Julia Quinn, and do the radical work of pursuing your desires, reclaiming your stories, and reimagining what you deserve. Listen and subscribe to Hot and Bothered wherever you get your podcasts. Hey HBs, you're listening to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two romance-loving BFFs recap a new romance novel each week and squee into your ear holes with your consent. I mean, really, you opted into this experience. Before we do anything else, I want to talk about the Patreon fundraiser we did in June and July of this year. We decided to double any new or increased pledges during that time frame. And for the increased pledges, we didn't double the amount the patron increased. We doubled the total amount. Well, y'all showed up. I'm ecstatic to announce that we donated $1,980 to the Yellowhammer Fund to help women in Alabama get the reproductive health care they need. So, thank you to all of our patrons for helping us make this happen. And speaking of Patreon, why don't we do a shout out? Anna S., you are the genetic copy of the Chosen One, a galactic princess with interplanetary royal blood and the ability to control bees. You are the legal owner of the Earth, so if any weird siblings try to come here and suck all our blood for their youth, you have veto power. You also love dogs. You always have. Specifically, you love one dog in particular with flying rollerblades. He used to have wings, but somebody cut them off because he bit somebody. Anyway, you're basically a superhero space queen who saves everyone. You can make out with any dog men you want, and no one can tell you any different because you have the title to the Earth. Congratulations. You can check out our Patreon with over 50 bonus episodes, peeks behind our very mysterious curtain, and lots of other perks at patreon.com/Heaving Bosoms podcast. It's a wonderful way to support the creators you love. All right, we're going to jump into the great big romance read with our recap of The Lady's Guide to Celestial Mechanics by Olivia Waite. Yay!
Hello, Melody. I say that. Did you see that post on the cult that was like, I can't get into an episode if it doesn't start with Melody. Here you go. Melody.
Aaron.
Oh, it doesn't work. Emily.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm great.
Do you want to hear a funny story about dogs?
Every day.
I hope it'll be funny. Okay, so I have to preface this. You've never met Rooster.
I know.
She's remarkably soft dog.
Mm.
And one time David purchased a leather belt that had a leather tag on the belt that said on it, "Feel the softness."
No. Did you put it on her collar?
Yeah, so you could feel that tag and understand the softness of the belt, which I'm sure was coiled up in plastic. So you could feel the softness. So he puts that on her collar, and that is by far the biggest thing on her collar. And then the other thing is like a little kind of like a washer, like a little ring that has Rue and then has my phone number on it. So if you just look at her tag, all you see is this big thing that says "Feel the softness." Okay. So the other day I get home from work, I go downstairs, I let the dogs out, I leave the door open because it's nice outside, go upstairs, change my clothes, get something to drink, go down, sit on the couch, and watch one episode of Glow.
Okay.
During this episode of Glow, Goat comes back in, sits on my lap. No sign of Rooster. I assume she's sunbathing in the yard as she does until she becomes so fucking hot that she like nearly dies every time. Like we have to carry her in. Anyway, so I get this call on my cell phone from this guy who's like, "Hey, is this the owner of a Real?" I was like, "Yeah, did she get out?" And he's like, "Yeah, she's in my kitchen." Oh, Rooster was in this man's kitchen. It's not like he found her in the outdoors and took her indoors. She appeared in his kitchen.
Oh my gosh, Rooster.
So I was like, the fuck? So I was like, okay, just send me your address. I'll be right there. He's like, yeah. Like, he sounded pissed. When I got there, I realized that's just kind of the, like, kind of guy he is. He's kind of just a gruff dude. Yeah. But he answered the door. He's holding my dog. She's like a little over half a mile away, which is incredible to me.
Oh my God.
So he answers the door. He's holding my dog. And he's like, yeah, I'm just standing in my kitchen. I've got the back door open because I'm grilling. So I guess he was like going in and out with like meats. He's like, all of a sudden I feel this like paw, paw, paw in the back of my legs. Like she went into another person's house and begged him for meats. He's like, so like there's a fucking dog in my house. He's actually saying these words like he's a profane man. He's like, there's a fucking dog in my house. He bends over. He's like, I bend down. I check her tag and it says, feel the softness. I'm like, what the fuck is this? This fucking dog's in my house. Its collar just says, feel the softness. Then I saw your phone number. So anyway, here's your dog. I'm like, okay. Walk back. And then I look to see, like, how the fuck she got out. Because there were places in the fence in the back where it's, like, the ground shifted. Okay. And so we put, like, little, to make it like you could get under it. She got under it a couple times. So we put, like, a screeny thing where those spots were. But, like, everywhere, this yard is pretty airtight, okay? Yeah. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
There's a fucking tunnel into the neighbor's yard.
Tunneled?
Oh, no. Guess whose paws were covered in dirt?
Goat. They work together.
No, not like that.
Oh, do you think Rooster
Goat was like
demanded?
No, I think it's worse. I think Goat set a trap.
Trying to get rid of Rooster?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. I think she dug that tunnel, then she came in and she sat on my lap and she's like, it's only a matter of time until that dog goes under that hole to certain peril on the highway.
Oh my God. Criminal mastermind.
Yeah.
Goat.
Yes.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Weren't you going to name her El Chapo at first?
Perfecto. No, she's probably. I imagine when I'm on the phone with this guy, she's sitting next to me being like, oh, Rooster, pobrecita. Oh, tenemos buscando a Rooster. No sé. Yeah. 100%.
For all of you who are new to the podcast, Goat is her Spanish-speaking dog. And they've discovered that because she would not do anything until they started
She was rescued.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was rescued, and she only responds to Spanish commands, it turns out.
Something we never would have figured out in our house. Thank goodness you guys actually speak Spanish.
Sometimes. Well, we were at our wits' end. We just started trying other languages because the bitch wouldn't sit. All right.
Oh, man. So we have some super exciting programming for today. Are you ready to tell everyone?
There might be new listeners. I think we might snag like 2. Hey, 2 new listeners.
Hi, new listeners.
The Great Big Romance Read. What's it called? The Great
Big Romance Read. Yeah.
Hey, I got it for the first time ever.
Hey, you did it. So we are participating in the Rip Bodice's Great Big Romance Read. And I, for one, am ecstatic about this choice.
This was a great book.
God, this book is so good.
And I didn't know who, I just like put it on our calendar months ago when they reached out to us. And I didn't realize this was an Olivia Waite book. I was like, yeah, The Lady's Guide to Schmur Schmur. And we've been like, people have been requesting for us to read an Olivia Waite for some time. Yeah. So Hey, 5-star reviewer
so
that requested
stoked.
Olivia Waite. You got it. And we didn't even know. So there you
That's
go.
right.
Crossed off the list.
Get stoked.
Yeah, this was a fantastic book.
This was so amazing. From start to finish, it was just like heartfelt and awesome. And I just loved it so much. The cover, too. Did you look at this cover?
I loved this cover. Also, I was hanging out. This is just going to be me talking about my life, guys. So just brace yourselves.
Fair.
Tangent City. I was hanging out with a kid this week, 10-year-old kid. He was reading on his Kindle. I was reading on my Kindle.
Yeah.
And I was like, what you reading? And he was like, I'm reading a book called Gabby and Sal something the universe. And I was like, cool. What are you reading? And I was like, oh, this is about a lady astronomer and no one will take her serious. And schmur. And I did this whole thing like, oh, her brother's a painter and she had to move out. Now she's with this other lady and she's going to fund her. And they're like BFFs. And that lady does embroidery. And like, I told him this whole story. And David's like, that's what you're reading? Because like, I have noticed that you don't read books about lady astronomers that aren't taken seriously, though that's not what your interests are. And I was like, yes. And I showed him the cover. I was like, this is the lady astronomer. And that one's the countess who's funding her research. And he's like, oh.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Oh.
He couldn't say so at dinner, but he was like, oh, they fucking. So that's what it's about.
That's right.
And guys, they fucking.
Oh, yeah.
That is what it's about. It's very good.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. All right. So this thing starts off with absolute heartbreak, though. Heartbreak City. Poor Lucy is at the wedding of her lover of 5 fucking years.
I was so worried this was our heroine.
Me
for
too.
the first 4 pages, I was just like, nope. I'm not doing an affair with this chick for the rest of this book. And thankfully, we don't. She's the villain. All right. So Lucy's sitting there at the wedding of Priscilla, her lover, and just like crying her eyes out because this bitch was her girlfriend for 5 years.
5 years.
Didn't even tell her that she was getting married to this dude who also happens to be Lucy's friend or like her brother's friend or like,
and
I
also,
don't know,
like,
but they
just
hung out.
A really good dude, like a sterling dude.
Solid dude.
Yeah, she finds out when the bands are red, you guys. How dare. Ooh.
Yeah. And you know what Pris said? She goes,
what?
So she's called Priscilla.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend my life alone, Pris had explained, her hands in her lap twined around each other, flexing the way they always did when she was anxious about something. Lucy says, you aren't alone. You have me. And she says, but Lucy, I can't marry you. She needs to have her fortune and she needs security and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I was going to say it's bullshit, but like a little bit like hashtag justice for Pris, but like not a lot. Like
there are like some structural problems here, you know, that like you got to consider, but also like go fuck yourself, Pris. Just have a conversation with her. I would be fine with Priscilla if she had been like, Lucy, this is the decision I'm making.
Up front.
Yeah, but to bombard her with that and then just we can't get into it.
And then when she turns around later in the book and like, is it just a total bitch?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I know.
What
later
are
on, you guys.
Are we a spoiler-free podcast? Have we changed? What happened?
No, we're a spoiler podcast. Oh my God, you guys. We're going to talk about it like when we get there, but she comes back and she's like, I just assumed that you would be waiting for me and you would be ready to just like have an affair for the rest of our lives.
You would just like be my mistress. Ugh, the worst.
Ugh.
But like just the getting married thing, I think we can't super blame her for.
No, of course not. No. The getting married without telling Lucy about it is fucked up from start to finish. Have one conversation, Priscilla, you selfish girl. So she goes home and adding insult to injury, her dad died like just a few months ago. Her brother is now in charge of her because England times.
Ugh.
And so her brother's like, we got to sell off your telescope and get you married soon. We got to get you settled because, you know, things are expensive and nobody's going to what?
Lucy's dad was a famous astronomer. You just like threw out the telescope thing. We got to say he was a famous astronomer.
Yeah.
And Lucy was an astronomer with her dad. And he was kind of going senile in his later years. And she was doing like the most of the astronomy for him. And so she's become an astronomer.
Definitely all of the maths.
Yes, definitely all the maths. You know how we always talk about how we are not maths?
She is so
this
maths.
Heroine, she is a math.
Yeah, she's just a math.
Much math.
Mm-hmm.
All the time math.
Yeah.
Sometimes stars, occasionally stars, but all the time math. And Stephen, her brother, is all the time an asshole and some of the time a painter.
Right. Correct.
Yes.
That's a really good way. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good way to say it.
So yeah, he's like, we gotta sell these telescopes.
Yeah. And
we
he's
gotta have a
doing
garage
this
sale.
as he's like going out the door to spend 3 weeks with his goddamn bohemian friends in the country painting. Get a job, Stephen. Get a job.
This book really treats like painting like that is a stable career in England times. And I have to listen, hey, I know for the last like 15 podcasts I've been like, don't add us, don't email us. I don't want to know if I'm wrong.
Know. No, I want to know.
Is painting like a legit career in England times? Because like they're acting like it is, and that does not seem stable.
I mean, I think it's just as, maybe it is a bit more because like photography doesn't exist yet. Unless it does. Oh my God. I don't know.
We don't know. Guys, don't. All right, listen. Don't add us about the photography thing, but do add us about the painting.
I feel like, because this is a time when everybody's like getting portraits painted and stuff. This is when like Elizabeth walks through the portrait hall of Mr. Darcy's big house and she's like, ooh, look at how steamy and wonderful he is. And it's like an oil painting. Yeah. You know, so as long as you're an oil painter, you're fine.
Yeah.
If you're a good oil painter, are you good, Stephen? I see no evidence that you are good.
Well, no, we find out later he is not good at painting. But what I was going to say is maybe this is like the author trying to say a male painter, which are, listen, if you're an artist, we respect you or whatever. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
But like art, very not a stable career, but like astronomy, maths, very super stable career. So maybe what the author's trying to say is like a man who's a painter is still valued as a more stable thing than a woman who's an astronomer or a scientist. Deep. See what I did?
Look at Aaron.
That's what we call
in with the hot
theme.
takes.
Is that a
that's
theme?
right.
I don't know. Is that a theme?
Yeah, that's part of the theme.
Analogy. I don't listen.
Listen, it's late.
Okay.
So then she's sitting there and she gets a letter from this countess who she's been sending letters to and fro between for years. 2 years ago, the countess's husband died. The husband was this famous astronomer and they were always out in the world together, sailing on ships and looking at stars.
Egypt, Morocco, France, Asia times,
other places.
Islands.
Wherever a ginger flower is.
Definitely
done.
Egypt. I remember Egypt being one of them. Yeah,
completely.
A lot of expeditions.
A lot of South Seas, you guys.
Yeah, South Seas.
Mm-hmm. So she has always really admired this woman because she's never left, like, basically her county. Like, she's never been anywhere. And she's always...
May I read it?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Lucy recognized the handwriting and her heart skipped a beat. It was from the Countess of Moth, the same countess who had traveled the world observing eclipses with her brilliant husband, astronomer. Ooh, okay. So his name is George Saint, St. Day. Do I need to say that in a different frickin' way than it's
I think it's
spelled?
Sinday. Like St. John. I don't know. Maybe it's Saint Day. Let's say Saint Day because guys, we're crass Americans.
Her astronomer husband, George, period. Together, they had set foot on 6 out of 7 continents. The Countess had thrown a 12-course banquet in the shadow of the pyramids during a partial eclipse. She had charmed the king of Bohemia so much that he had written her a poem every day for a year and only stopped when his royal bride insisted. Well, it says Saint Day, but I'm just going to call him George, was making observations in the far-off longitudes and recording the positions of the potential new stars and their arcs. The Countess would copy them out meticulously, column by column, and send them all in the hungriest scientific minds back home.
Oh my gosh. So Lucy already has a big old competency boner for Lady Moth. But she then asked in her so Lucy's hoping that she's going to get like one last set of data. It's not in there. Instead, she's like, hey, do you or your dad know anybody who could translate this French astronomical text? Because the society is looking for a translator. And Lucy's like, I am heartbroken. I have nothing here. I'm going to go to London. I'm going to throw myself at her feet. And I'm going to say, I am the right translator for this. And
because she took French sometime. She also knows
she knows how to speak French. But mostly, you guys, she knows how to speak maths.
And the language of love.
Oh.
So she...
if you will.
Is that it? Pepe Le Pew. All right. So, and she doesn't even tell her brother. She just, like, goes to London.
No, fuck him. He's in Bohemia or wherever. So then we switch to Catherine's perspective. Lady Catherine of Moth. And she's, like, not super happy with her lot right now. But she is really happy about being a widow. Because we find out that her relationship with her husband was awful. He was terrible. He essentially married her because he thought he would have control over her inheritance, not realizing that the countess before her was really smart and the whole line is inherited and controlled by women. Just like feminism, you know? She's How
did it happen? I don't understand England time. So if you're smart, you can just fucking will it all to the girls?
No,
so the other books, they just had dumb moms? I don't get it. I don't understand.
They keep on talking about how, like, first of all, I think that was like an ancestral thing. And then second of all, they keep on talking about the former Lady Moth's time period being like more permissible. So,
I see.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It was before society clamped back down on ladies, is my take on it. Okay.
All right.
So he was emotionally abusive. He was demanding all of that. But now, yeah, like at the very least, she had his endeavors to sort of put her attention on. And now she doesn't really know what to do.
Right.
She's bored. Yeah.
And her butler knocks on her door and is like, there's a lady outside with a lot of luggage. And she's like, send her in, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And then afterwards, she's like, why did I just say send her in? Nobody said that they were visiting me. So then Lucy comes in. Dark-haired, slender Lucy.
Angular face, gray eyes, tall, young, 10 years younger than the Countess.
Yes. And she's vibrating with this energy that Lady Catherine can't quite place. And she's not, she actually says something like she's not super happy about the ambitious gleam in the girl's eye. Ooh.
Because George had that ambitious gleam.
Yeah, it's triggering for her. Oh. So they go back and forth, and Lucy's like, hi, I am the person for this job. And she's like, ooh, the polite society is pretty much male-dominated, and they hate ladies. So it's going to be a tough sell.
Well, she tells her for the first time that she was the one writing her the letters and not her father. She's the one that was doing these computations the whole time. And then Catherine now gets a competence boner back for Lucy. So now they have a mutual respect boner that's very nice.
Oh, I know. It's just unfurled.
Oh, God, I hate it when you say unfurled. I hate it. All right.
Okay, so she's like, you can stay with me. We're having a polite science society meeting later on this week, a dinner or whatever. You can stay with me and you can plead your case in person with them.
I just love that this society is called the Polite Society of whatever, because they are like the meanest. These are the meanest mean girls.
Mean.
And they're all men.
Oh, yeah. My note is Lucy can stay with her while she talks to the Polite Society about hiring a person who happens to have a vagina to do work that she's supremely capable of, perfectly suited for, and has years of experience in.
And it's not going to work out.
No, it's not. So they go to dinner.
So that night they have dinner. Lucy wears her very finest gown, which is the gown that Priscilla embroidered for her with like leaves and stuff all over it.
It's viney.
But it's still like a shitty muslin gown that like isn't nice, and she's worried that she doesn't look nice enough for dinner. But Catherine compliments the gown and is like, who did that embroidery? And then like Lucy gets like super upset and starts crying and runs away. She's thinking about Priscilla, who got married like 2 days ago. Yeah. And Catherine's like, she's pretty weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But she also feels a little bad because she's like, am I in such a bad temper that I sent my guest running in tears? So the next morning, she comes to find Lucy and she's in the library. And so, this moment was so beautiful and like subtle, but still telling, because Catherine stands outside the library door, like listening to try to figure out what the occupant's mood is. Yeah. Because George went through these, like, he would throw tantrums and then go weeks and weeks and weeks without talking to her. And he was just like, I mean, he was incredibly emotionally abusive. So she's doing that. And then she goes in and she apologizes. And Lucy's like, for complimenting my gown? And poor Catherine's inner monologue is basically like, "Gah, like, why am I? Yeah, you're right. Why am I apologizing right now? Like, I'm just doing it out of habit."
I've got it. Lucy says, "What is it you're saying sorry for?"
Yeah.
The words were gentle, almost laughing, but Catherine winced as though they were shards of glass because the truth was that she did not know, and it was mortifying to have it pointed out. Ugh. It is mortifying.
It is. Oof.
Okay.
But meanwhile, Catherine's also banishing thoughts of Lucy, like running her nimble fingers over something or other. Like there's a lot of that going on.
Well, at some point, so George liked to be, when he was doing his astronomy math in his library, he liked to be left alone for like years. He wanted to be left alone. She doesn't mind the company. So Catherine's like barely ever been in this library, but she's like, oh, she doesn't mind the company. I'll go grab my embroidery. So they have these days where Lucy's doing math.
Some translating.
Yeah, translating math into
She's
English.
Thinking in the beautiful romantic language while while Catherine is over there just making these beautiful works of art out of silk threads.
I think I just made the dolphin noise that Smart Bitches said that. You guys, we were on Smart Podcast, Trashy Books.
Yeah.
And at some point, whoever does the transcripts, whoever was doing the transcript, just put in brackets, someone is making a dolphin noise at this point. And you could just read the exasperation in that poor transcribers. Just like, oh God, now they're making fucking dolphin noise. You know what? I'm just gonna write it in there. That's what I'm gonna do. Fuck them. Yep. Anyway.
I chose to think that she found us incredibly charming, and she was just reporting accurate facts.
That Sarah Wendell made a dolphin noise. She is like a poised and like professional interviewer.
I know.
We are definitely dolphin noise people.
Yeah, of course.
But I think it had to be me because like you were the one talking, and I'm like,
I was talking.
If there is a candidate on this podcast for dolphin noises, it would be you, but it couldn't have been. Anyways,
I was so pleased to read that. Okay. So,
all right.
So they are spending time together. And so Lucy talks about the last time she translated something being with the same friend who made her gown. And Catherine starts realizing that this quote unquote friend was more than that.
Yes.
Because of like the way that they're talking and what they were. I think it was that Priscilla went to translate something, but she translated it into a dirty limerick.
Yes. Yeah.
And then like the wistful way she said it and all of that was just like really
I think
serious.
Too, she asks her name.
Yeah, wait,
Lucy replies,
I've got it.
Good.
She goes, she asked her name, and then Lucy goes, Priscilla. There was no mistaking it. Only love could make a name drip from Miss... I don't know how to say her last name. McKelney?
Schmerger?
Okay, McKelney. That's what we're going to go with. Okay, only love could make a name...
any of all the names in this book are Schmergers to me, so get ready.
Okay, only love could make a name drip from Miss McKelney's mouth in those honeyed tones. Even a love in mourning still had sparks in it. You guys, the writing in this book is...
gorgeous. Beautiful.
Oh,
so good.
I am not equipped to describe it to you in a way like you just have to read it. It is so incredible.
This is why we're podcasters. We're not writers. We are like,
that's right.
Writing is good. Writing is good. But you have to understand it's like real good.
It's so
we're not going to be able to read it
beautiful.
good either, but like it is very good.
It's heart-wrenching, and it just like digs right underneath your soul and tugs your heartstrings, and then it probably does things to your downstairs region. I don't know. Who am I, to comment on such things?
Why are you being so demure? Is it because of our 2 new listeners from the big romance read? I don't understand. You're being so coy, whereas usually you're like, this did things to my downstairs. You're like, maybe in a hypothetical world, someone reading this. How dare you? All right.
Okay, so then after spending that like whole week together.
Well, at one point she asks her, will you introduce me to this society properly?
Yes.
At like one of their meetings. And Catherine's like, you don't understand how mean these guys are going to be to you. Are you sure you want to like go in there like full-fledged and like be formally introduced instead of just kind of like creeping in the background?
Well, yeah. And she's specifically worried, like, are you ready to debate theoretical thoughts? Are you ready to like go back and forth with equations?
You will be far more scrutinized than any other person who is ever a member of the society. And she
and
says,
Lucy's like,
I'm
absolutely.
an astronomer too.
Yeah. That's what I do. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Of course I am. I
Naively,
can't wait.
she thinks it will be fine.
Yeah, she thinks, of course, these scientific people are going to talk to me about scientific things, and we can both do that together. And that's how, like, scientists have to work as a community, even as all of them are working separately. And she understands that because she's a motherfucking scientist, everyone. Ugh. So they go to this dinner, and Lucy's translated, I think, the introduction or the first chapter, and she's got the pages with her, just in case. No?
No, I was shaking my head at really good writing. Sorry,
God
I was
damn it.
shaking my head at the sentence.
I was like, the next thing isn't dinner?
No, it's good. I was just flipping to get to dinner, and then I saw this passage I highlighted that said, with that sharp hook and the blinding skein of silk, Lady Moth stabbed into the white muslin over and over like the daintiest possible murder.
Oh, I highlighted that too. Yeah.
So did 26 other people, according to my Kindle. Anyway, sorry.
Everybody
dinner.
else is missing out.
Yes.
So, dinner is Banana Town.
Banana Town.
They think that Lucy is just like Catherine's little friend guest, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about your dad, and I'm so glad we finally get to meet you," because they know that she is related to this famous astronomer. So as they sit down to dinner, they're introduced to two people in particular. One is Mr. Frampton. He is a full society fellow already. And they comment that his grandmother was from Saint Dominique. So he speaks French fluently because, you guys,
that becomes important.
We looked some things up. That is a French colony in the Caribbean. So look at heaving bosoms. No one.
Yeah,
shit.
we Googled it moments before recording.
Oh,
so yeah.
Pew, pew, pew,
so
pew.
look at that. Welcome to our history podcast.
That's
where
right.
we know what I meant by history was also geography. Welcome to it. We know where islands are and what they used to be called and maybe still are. God, I'm digging it. We sounded smart now. I'm making it worse.
Yeah. What white people took it over and did terrible things to the indigenous populations, guys. In this case, it was
specifically the French.
That's right.
All right.
So, and then there's another guy, Mr. Willoughby. I heard Willoughby in my brain because Willoughby is the bad guy in Sense and Sensibility. Mm-hmm. So if I say Willoughby, that's why.
It's better than Schmerger. Willoughby.
There you go. He's the nephew of some old white dude who's already into society and is trying to hey, Aaron, what's that called? When you get your family member in there.
Nepotism.
I know what that's called. Nepotism.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to nepotize everything. So,
or as people who nepotize things call it, a legacy member.
Oh, it makes my whole skin crawl. So, they're at dinner and everybody's like, these two dudes are going to do the thing. These are the two candidates we've come up with. And then Catherine, because P.S., Catherine is putting up the funds for a full half of this project. She is funding 50% of this giant project.
Mm-hmm. Which is why she was writing to Lucy saying, hey, do you know anyone who could do this?
Yeah. So she's like, as the purse strings here, I have somebody that I would like to nominate. And she introduces Lucy. And everybody's like, oh, do you see the tits on that person? Because tits disqualify you.
Her tits will get in the way of the ink and the papers. They're in the way.
Oh, my God. And there was that moment where they were like, And also, she couldn't work late into the night alongside men's because who knows what will happen.
That?
Yeah, and Catherine's
I
like,
don't
I'm
remember
sorry,
that.
you don't trust society gentlemen to
Oh, I do remember
be
now.
okay with themselves?
Yeah.
And they're like, well,
Yep.
no, it's not. That's certainly not what we meant either. Oh. So anyway, she's like, I know how to do this. And she gives him her pages. And she's like, I basically auditioned for you. Here's my audition. He doesn't even touch them. He just bats them onto the floor.
Onto the floor. It is so insulting.
Oh my God, everyone.
Yes.
So that's when Catherine is just like, I'm pulling my money and we're getting the fuck out of dinner. And then she sort of stops herself.
Oh, wait,
what's up?
I'm sorry.
What's up?
Before we leave this abominable room, I have to read this.
Yeah.
So Wilby, the nephew, who hasn't done jack shit yet, except for be somebody's nephew, interrupts this conversation that's specifically about Ms. Schmurger, Lucy, and says, but let's go about it scientifically. Oh. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
but let's go about it scientifically, he said, his expression eager as a puppy on a new scent. We must not start with assumptions, but with the fundamental questions. Several points need to be clearly determined at the outset. First, whether women are capable of astronomy. Second, whether they would offer any particular benefit to astronomy. Third, whether astronomy would be of any use or benefit to women. That third one, that's for us. He's putting that in there for us, to make sure we get something out of it. Fourth, whether it would harm the needs of mankind to encourage women to put their efforts toward the sciences rather than the continuation of the species. Whether it would hurt mankind to let them think about science instead of just
popping out babies.
And then Mr. Chadenschmerger nods. That is a proper scientific line of inquiry, Mr. Wilby.
Oh.
And Kelschmerger. Oh, Aunt Kelschmerger. Can we talk about her?
Kelmarsh, yeah.
That's close, I want to say.
Kelmarsh, yeah.
Yeah, Kelmarsh. She's pretty cool. She's Lady Catherine's aunt. She reels back as if she had been slapped. Actually, that's when they all stand up and leave, I think.
Yeah, because Catherine's like, I'm not going to listen to this anymore.
She has to step over her own pages that are on the freaking floor. And then the wind of her skirts goes by and the pages wave goodbye to her on her way out because this is such good fucking writing.
Because the imagery.
All right.
Yeah, so they're in the carriage on the way home, and Catherine says that she didn't expect them to deny Lucy's existence. She said, I prepared you for them to go back and forth with you on scientific theory. I did not expect for them to deny your existence. Yes. And then she says that she's going to pay to publish Lucy's translation on her own. Yeah.
We should say when they were storming out, Catherine said, I'm not paying for any of this now.
Yeah.
She pulled her plug. Did you already say that? Sorry.
I did. No worries.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
I wasn't listening to you. That's the problem.
you were in the text. I understand.
Is that part of podcasting is like listening to the other person?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's like 50%.
I guess we can talk about this after.
Sure.
After we're done with the episode.
Yeah.
All right.
So then she's like, also, if you need somewhere to, hang out while you're doing this translating, you can always, I don't know, stay at my townhouse.
Yeah.
And Lucy pinks up in her cheeks a little bit, and then she agrees. And then Catherine feels this odd sense of relief that she doesn't have to part from Lucy. So,
woo! And also, like, during that week they spent together, I think we kind of skipped over a little bit, like, Catherine was embroidering these beautiful exotic flowers that Lucy was looking at with, like, amazement at the artistry and the level of detail. And also, like, they were flowers that she'd never seen before. Yeah. And she's like, did you ever think about doing botany? And she's like, nah, I could have never done botany. I'm a lady, so I did embroidery. And she's like really, really super crazy talented at embroidery. Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to put that in there. That's already a pot that's cooking on the stove.
Yes. So then the next 2 weeks goes by with them. It's from Catherine's perspective, and she says that they're sort of orbiting each other. They'll work in the room together side by side, but then they part to do other things, and they'll come back for tea and then part and then come back for dinner. And it says she felt lightning struck. Every conversation, every joke, every blush and averted gaze. Oh, an averted glance sent another bolt through her. Whole territories were beginning to burn in parts of her soul that she'd always kept carefully darkened.
If that isn't the best sentence about realizing you're gay, I swear to God. I mean, it's never happened to me. I've never realized I'm gay because I'm not gay, but it just felt like I was just like, whole territories were beginning to burn in parts of her soul that she'd always kept carefully darkened. It's like the most beautiful thing I've ever read.
Olivia.
It was so beautiful.
Olivia, Miss Waite, let us just fawn over you.
And like, it never says Catherine was pretty sure she was into this lady in a sex way, which is probably what I would have written. That would have been my paragraph.
Aaron, no, that's not what you would have written. It's definitely what I would have written. Aaron is a writer. That's what I would have written. He's not here,
but our sometimes guest star Cole would have written, and that's when Catherine realized that Lucy was a smoke show and she was smoking hot.
That's right.
And they wanted to do, what did he say? Vaginal interplay? Do you remember that? He said the words vaginal interplay. It's like astounding to me. Anyways.
Oh boy. So then we find out a little bit more about Aunt Kelmarsh. During all of Catherine's time away at sea, Aunt Kelmarsh sort of got the hint that George, her horrible dead husband, was becoming more and more controlling as the years went on. And so at first, he was reading all of the mail that came in because he figured that everything was his business and should come to him directly. And then he would give her anything that she needed to see. But then she realized there was a good chance that George was also reading her writing.
Mm-hmm.
So when she would correspond with Aunt Kelmarsh, because she's also a botanist and she's very, very interested in it, and she's also an incredible artist, they would write really boring, drab things on paper, but then they would communicate via flowers that they'd drawn.
Art flowers, you guys. Like,
metaphor
art flowers. Melody, if you ever try to communicate with me via a metaphor art flower, I will not get it. Just so you know.
Guess what, Aaron? There's no way I will either do that nor understand
smush up a daisy.
If you
I'm just going to be like, weird, a daisy got in here. It got smushed. I'm not going to know. If you paint one, I'm just going to be like, oh, Melody's weird now. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be what I think.
But also, before that letter arrives from Aunt
Kelmarsh,
very close to Kelschmerger. Lucy shows Catherine her first paragraph. So I'm going to try to read it to you, and there is inevitably going to be a word in here I don't know. So
fair.
All right.
Man, we sound so dumb this episode. You guys, we were kind of smart. She's a lawyer.
Well, we're kind of
I have a college education.
We're kind of smart, but this book is very smart.
It's so smart. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay.
And very England. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Catherine's going to read what Lucy handed her, and she's like, hey, would you mind just, proofing this for me? Ahem. The moment we raised our eyes to the heavens is the very moment we became, if something less than angels, still something more than animal. Alone of all living things, mankind dares to look up from the earth and dream of other worlds. Those worlds, howsoever distant, are connected to ours by a force so vast and ubiquitous that it went unthought of for most of history. Yet now we know that this self-same force which sends a breadcrumb tumbling to the parlor floor keeps the moon tethered in her orbit. I speak, of course, of the power of gravitation, whereby the attractive force between two bodies is mutual and equivalent, whatever the difference of mass between them.
Oh, boy.
So Lucy has decided that she is going to translate this Oleron text in a way that anybody, even not an astronomer, can read it. And specifically, she wants to translate it in a way that can make Catherine love it and love astronomy and love science and understand it and be as captivated with astronomy as Lucy is, because Catherine is her muse.
Yes, and she's looking at all these things that Catherine's doing, realizing that Catherine is sort of disparaging it as like a trifle and women's work and whatever. And she's like, no, if I can make her understand this scientific process, then maybe she'll fall in love with science and maybe she'll like be interested in botany or like whatever else she's interested in. She just wants to like open the gate in Catherine's
Catherine
mind.
and all ladies.
And all
too.
everyone, too.
And so Catherine says, I had no idea that this like highly scientific text was so poetic. Oh, and also this very scientific text starts from like chapter 1000, and Lucy wants to walk it back and fill in all the fundamental science before you get up there to like the high science.
Yeah, because it's a scholarly text for scholars, and she wants to make it so that you get all of that scholarly work, but you can also understand the building blocks on which it sits.
So then she's like, I kind of wrote it. Is it weird? What do you think? I kind of wrote it like for you kind of so that you would like it. And then Catherine, who has already kind of like gotten wind that like Lucy likes girls because she's pretty sure that friend was like a friend she made out with. Then she said, it's for ordinary readers or whatever. And Lucy says, I wasn't imagining just anyone, she said softly. I was writing as though I were explaining it to you. Catherine, flustered, dropped her eyes to the page again. The attractive force between two bodies.
Bites lip.
All at once, it was a great deal of work simply to pull breath into her lungs and to force it out again. The words pulled her inexorably forward to the following passage, and then it's more and more and more.
Oh my gosh,
like,
it's
kind
beautiful.
of like a little bit sexy about how like moons and stuff are like drawn toward each other.
Oh yeah, it's definitely sexy, you guys.
It's sexy science.
So much of this science is drop dead sexy. This science is so fuckable on the page, like I can't even.
This science is fuckable. All right.
So then Aunt Kelmarsh asks them over for tea.
Yes.
So they go over and she shows them her garden, and she leads them over to this shell grotto that she made in memorial of Catherine's mother, the earlier Lady Moth. And then things start getting into place in Catherine's brain. What's up?
We talked about the correspondence a bit, but did you say what happened when George died?
Oh,
like they were doing all these flower metaphor letters at each other, and then when George died, Catherine just wrote Kelmarsh a letter that said, "George dead, write as you please," which is very similar to our Muppet text, which I really like. George dead, write as please. And then Aunt sent back one that just said "good" underlined 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, he sucked.
And both of those had metaphorical flowers included too, because I think the one after around good was apple blossoms, and she understood it to mean that better things were ahead. Ooh. Okay. So they get to this shell grotto because her mom was a bit of a naturalist, and she had this huge collection that she'd done over her life of a bunch of different species. Like, it's very English, you know, like butterflies pinned to things. You get it. And one of her favorite things was her giant shell collection, but that it had to get sold off after a while. And so Kelmarsh bought as much of that collection as she could, and then she made this big thing in memoriam to who Catherine realizes as she starts putting the pieces together in her mind after her new misunderstood sort of attraction to Lucy, that Aunt Kelmarsh and her mom were also lady pals in the bedroom. You guys. They had a years-long, beautiful relationship when things were more permissive, too. Yeah, they were together.
And Lucy and Aunt Kelmarsh, like, they're telecommunicating pretty immediately about, like, I'm picking up what you're putting down here. You seem like a lady who knows what is going on.
So I thought that too in that scene, but then later on, well, we'll get to it. I thought the same thing during this scene because there was a moment where Kelmarsh was like, well, you have to take the happiness where you can find it, was one of the things she said. It was a bunch of that, and Lucy would like give little knowing chuckles. Anyway, tea goes well, and Catherine comes away with this whole idea that like, this is not a new thing. Women have been lovers forever.
Yeah. And what she actually says is, they don't let you have anything whole, you know, if you don't follow the pattern. You have to find your happiness in bits and pieces instead. But it can still add up to something beautiful. It's a metaphor, you know, because it's the grotto, too.
Because of the grotto, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. This whole book is goddamn swoony. You need to pick it up and read it immediately.
Yeah. Well, and they talk about how there are places in the world where like women can be together and can be partners.
Yeah.
And Lucy's kind of referencing her all girls school, which was like pretty, everybody was like down and cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
I forget where Aunt Calmarsh and Lady Catherine's mom hooked up, but like they were in some kind of abbey or something like that. Weren't they in some kind of like boarding house for ladies at some point in time?
I don't remember. No, I don't know.
There was something, and they have this little like, if you know who to ask, you can find a place where you can be with your lady friends.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they get drunk and go home in a carriage very late.
Very late. And Lucy's sort of like sleeping in the carriage.
Her like
and
bonnet is like askew, and she's got like some tumbles of hair. You know, you guys know, in England times, when that one tendril of hair comes down, that's when you know it's on. When that's
right. One
tendril of hair is like against the neck and the hero or heroine is fixated on it, that's when you know love's around the corner. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Catherine finds this utterly enchanting. And so when she goes home, she decides that because she's been looking at Lucy in all of her mourning clothes. She's still in her like half mourning clothes, which is like blacks and grays and dull lavenders and all the bullshit. So she's like, I'm going to make a shawl for Lucy that reflects her style and interests. I'm going to spend a lot of time on it, and I'm going to take my time because A, it's a labor of love, and B, it says, Catherine wanted Lucy, but more than that, Catherine wanted Lucy to want her back. And Lucy wouldn't if she were still pining for the girl she'd lost. So Catherine let the days flow by like water while she put stitch after stitch after stitch, as though each one were mending a small rent in Lucy McKelney's heart. She's stitching her heart back together.
She knows she can like do things to be like overt and like, hey, I'm into this, and do you want to like do kisses with me and stuff?
Right.
Like she knows that there are things that she could do because she already is certain about this thing about Lucy.
Yes.
But she's very nervous that because like she's the rich one and Lucy's living in her house and she's paying her for her work and she's publishing this book for her, that Lucy's going to feel obligated.
Right.
And Catherine, also being 10 years older than Lucy, is a little bit worried that Lucy would be like, okay, you know, so
right.
She wants to buy her dresses. You know, she thinks about just going out and sending her to her
modiste.
Yep. And getting her those dresses. And then she's like, no, I don't want her to feel like a pet. I don't want her to feel like I'm lavishing these gifts on her in a way that I expect something back. Which I thought was very... Well, I kind of like, if I'm Lucy, I just want those dresses. But like, I kind of get where Catherine's coming from.
Yeah, I know. I was torn here because I was like, but dresses though.
But dresses.
Like, I don't know what is hotter than somebody who's like checking their own power, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But also at the same time, like she does get those dresses in the end. So
yeah.
She's doing fine.
And she does it on her own goddamn steam. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll get there. So.
And guess what? Lucy's into Catherine too. It ought to have been agonizing, living and working in close quarters alongside a woman so beautiful and yet so unattainable. But Lucy's heart, newly mended, you guys, it's already mended, was prepared to bask in any sensation that was not the sharp pain of loss. So unrequited fascination for her benefactress came not as a trial, but rather as a pleasurable seasoning to any day's difficult work. And if the feeling occasionally stole her breath and her wits and kept her awake into the small hours of the night, well, nobody had to know. Really, it was much safer and more convenient than any actual love affair would have been. So Lucy's also kind of like, on the not wanting to pursue it because she doesn't know if Catherine likes ladies.
Yeah, how is she to know? She was married for forever.
I can't imagine. Like, even like in the world today, I don't know how you figure out if somebody else likes ladies, let alone in England times. That's gotta be so
It can be very confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. So Catherine comes in and she's really nervous, but she presents her night sky shawl to Lucy.
God.
And we find out that it is covered in goddamn comets. Oh, it says, oh man.
We find out that it's covered in goddamn comets. That's what you said.
Starbursts.
Maybe they'll let you do a blurb for the cover of this book. It's covered in goddamn comets. Melody.
Okay. So, It says, this whole scene had been carefully, painstakingly sewn one stitch at a time by Lady Moth's own talented hands. Lucy's breath caught, and she hoped her red cheeks could be mistaken for a grateful blush, but all she could imagine was Lady Moth's hands going everywhere the shawl would, curving over Lucy's shoulders, tucked tight in the crook of her elbow, cupping the tender skin on the back of her neck.
Mm-hmm. Guys, if you thought science was sexy, embroidery, also sexy.
Super, super sexy. And Lucy's like, how did you learn how to do this? And Lady C is like, I got it from my mama. I'll show you her things.
Which is apparently a sampler book, which is the thing. Listen.
I did not know about a sampler book.
I haven't been reading England Times for very long. I've told you millions of times. I never started reading any England Times until we started this podcast. I didn't know about England Times embroidery sampler book. Is it paper? Yeah. Is it cloth? I think it's cloth. But sometimes the cloth is described as papery.
Well, it's old AF.
Oh, it's old.
So it's dried
cloth.
out. Yeah. It's the former Lady Moths,
Yeah.
So,
moth-eaten.
Okay, so they're looking through all this stuff. And then Lucy realizes, this is where it dings into place that I think it's that Lucy realizes Aunt Kelmarsh had an affair specifically with Catherine's mom.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think she knew that Aunt Kelmarsh was into ladies, but not necessarily with Catherine's mom.
Yeah.
And when she sees this embroidery of a snail shell, a garden snail shell, you guys, that's when she realizes that they were lovers forever. And then she realizes that her gorgeous companion might not be as unattainable as she thought. So Lucy slowly reaches out a hand and she touches Catherine's jaw. And then Catherine does the smallest little lean into Lucy's touch. And then Lucy asks Catherine if she can kiss her. And then Catherine says, please. And she says, please on a sigh, you guys.
Yeah. It's not like please. It's like, please.
Please.
Please. Please. Very England.
Mm-hmm. And then the kiss is soft and sweet and wonderful. And then it gets a little bit more heated a tiny bit. And they spend a while making out, but not too long because dinner's going to happen or tea is going to happen. Tea.
You guys, one more. She wanted to sink her hands into the lady's hair and hold her in place and kiss her until the sun went dark and the moon went dim and the stars blew out like spent wax candles.
Oh my gosh.
I just get this writing.
I know.
I can't.
I know. It's goddamn gorgeous with its goddamn comments and its goddamn spit wax candles.
Goddamn comments. Okay. But guess why they stopped kissing? Did you already say this? Because I was reading. It's the butler. Wait, the butler? The lady. Is it the butler?
One of them is bringing tea.
One of them comes in. They see him smooching probably.
No, they don't.
Brink Boars.
They hear the I don't remember.
Break
they hear
bills.
the pitter pat of the Break Bills butler.
It's not Break Bills.
So they come
it's a whole different thing. No, Brinkworth. Brinkworth the butler. Yeah.
No, they fix their hair. It's fine. It's fine.
I was sure that he'd seen them.
Well, who knows?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Hey, HBs. Melanie Edwards has a debut novel called Rocking Her Boat that you need. It's about Nina, a marine biologist who's working to save our oceans via her environmental nonprofit, and realizes she needs to revamp her personal life too. Enter Chelsea, a bad boy rocker she knew in high school who's making waves with his band. Their lives seem completely different, but romance sparks after a chance meeting. When Nina realizes that Chelsea is just as driven as she is, ambition is sexy, y'all. Pick up this book to find out if they can sustain their relationship after the infatuation phase, when their differing dreams create obstacles. Oh man, can you say competency boner? Find buy links in the show notes. And then at dinner, you guys, Catherine, God bless Catherine.
You guys, this is the most college move. This is the most freshman, do you want to see my speakers? They're in my dorm. do you want to see my highlights reel from high school football? It's in my dorm.
Did I tell you about when I arrived at college at 18? I had kissed, I think, a total of 2 people. And I didn't know that Do You Want to Watch a Movie was code.
Oh, no.
I didn't know. So especially when it was this dude on my floor, and he pulls out, what is that movie where they just like hit each other all the time? They prank each other, and they're always getting hurt. It was really popular in the 2000s. It was with that comedian
fiction
guy.
Movie or a real movie?
No, it was a serial.
It is Jackass.
Jackass the movie.
All right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he pulls out Jackass.
Wow, your brain.
I guess thinking that it's the most romantic movie in the whole wide world. That is the movie that we watched. And then as soon as like roll credits, he just like leaned over and put his mouth on my mouth. And I was like, whoa, that's what? It was very jarring.
Jackass didn't get you in the mood?
I mean, it didn't not work, but...
Oh, it worked.
I mean, we made out for a minute. And then I was like, all right, I guess I gotta go.
I, in college, did have a man say, do you want to see my speaker system? It's in my room. I don't think we were in a dorm. No, we weren't in a dorm. This was just like an upstairs. This is a man, you know. This was just an upstairs. He was like, you want to see my speaker system? I'm like, do I strike you? Like, I know what you mean, but do I strike you as the kind of lady that wants to see your speaker system? Like, what is it? Speakers? It seems like it's just speakers, and then there's a cord and it hooks it to a thing. And that's what it was. And we didn't look at him. I don't even know why he offered.
Well, all right. Catherine looks over at Lucy and she's like, I mean, this worked on me. I got chills when she did it. So I don't know if Catherine's just smoother.
I did too.
I know.
But I think she did chills because they're like grown-up ladies acting like children.
I know, they're so cute. They're just fumbling. She looks at her and she's like, do you want to see my embroidery sampler? And there's like this pause. And she's like, I keep it in my bedchamber.
Well, it's like first she says, I keep it upstairs. And then she pauses. And then she goes, in my bedroom. If that wasn't enough, I need to be very clear. I keep it in my vagina. Would you like to look at it? And Lucy's like, hell yeah.
Lucy's like, I would be honored. Swoon. Okay, so they're looking through this. So they do actually look at the embroidery sampler because Lucy is interested.
It is a very good embroidery sampler.
And she's interested in what Catherine is interested in because she's interested in Catherine. Everyone take note. So they're looking through it, and then all of a sudden they land on this. I didn't even know you could embroider portraits. I am so into this. They land on this embroidered portrait of this hot, hot lady, the Countess of Italy.
They also land on some colonization portraits that really dampened the mood. But then it was like, this is this lady from this tribe, and we stole her whole culture, and she's probably dead from diseases. Woof. But then there's a sexy one.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so Lucy's like, oh, man. Lucy goes, I assumed I was the first woman you ever kissed, she drawled. Was I? Catherine went full scarlet. You were, she said tartly, but I confess you weren't the first I wanted to kiss. So you are drawn to dark-haired, troublesome women, Lucy said, leaning closer. God help me, it seems I am. And then there was only one way to end such a conversation, and it is on TM. I just hit my table.
We never described Catherine, but she's a blonde-headed person, and she is also plump, I believe.
She's voluptuous.
Yeah.
She's got a generous bosom. Mm-hmm. And, okay, so the cover was beautiful, but I do have an issue with how thin
you wish that bosom was more generous on Catherine.
Yeah, I
never even looked. Is the age difference apparent in the cover?
I don't know that.
If I go to the cover, I'm never going to find my page again.
Don't you dare go to the cover.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, they make out like crazy, and then Catherine touches Lucy's bodice, And Lucy like shivers a little
Yeah,
bit.
this is like the classic like gasp from sexiness, and then like the other one misinterprets it as gasp from scandalized, and then it's off TM.
Yeah, so Catherine panics, and it is so sweet because Lucy's like, Catherine panics and she's like, oh, is it too fast for you? And Lucy, ever the intuitive, wonderful lover that she is like, no, it's certainly not too fast for me, but I think it might be too fast for you.
Mm-hmm.
And Catherine says she's not sure. And so Lucy, giving me the consent boner of a lifetime, is like, then we stop.
Mm-hmm.
And she does it like in the most comforting way. She's holding her hand and like stroking the back of her wrist or something delicious.
Yeah, she's like, the first lady I ever boned, all we did was like make out for like 6 months because I wasn't ready, and I'm willing to do that for you. And Catherine's like, 6 months is not a necessary thing. I think I need about 3 days, maybe 48 hours.
Right.
No. So then the next night, and it's important that each of these nights that they're spending in each other's room, we didn't talk about this maid. Do we need to talk about this maid? Is this essential?
It is.
Okay.
Oh, man. Wait, before we do that, can I please read something? It's so good.
No.
Oh, God damn it. Yes, I can.
No, of course I don't mean no. I've never meant no. I just wanted to see what it would be like.
Okay. So Catherine is not sure about this like easy reaction from her because the 2 people she slept with, we find out, were total toads. And so she goes, what?
Hashtag a little bit of justice for BDSM guy, because how could he have known? Just putting it out there.
You're right.
Hashtag justice for BDSM England Times guy, because it's not his fault that Catherine didn't say anything about her not enjoying the sex that he was giving her.
That's true. She verbally consented out loud. That's true.
Yes.
Okay. Don't you want to do more than kiss me? Lucy laughed again, and the sultry echo of it slid like warmed honey down Catherine's spine. Oh, if you wanted me to write out a list of my wants, it would be Christmas before I was through.
I highlighted that too.
I know. She slipped a thumb over the inside of Catherine's wrist. The Countess's pulse leapt to meet her fingers. But all those ideas depend on you wanting those things done to you, or wanting to do things to me. Because it's not about you doing or me doing. It's what we do together. And then she just like gets her undressed like politely and gives her like a chaste kiss and then says goodnight. And then, you guys, the kink we found out about me, she tells her to call her Catherine. The Countess says, don't call me lady anymore.
If you're one of the 2 new listeners to the podcast, Melody has a kink where when dukes ask you to call them by their first name, except for there was one duke that it didn't work for, but all the other ones she's
that
down.
Duke can go fuck himself.
All the other ones. And apparently a countess.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't get it. It does nothing for me. I kind of want to keep calling her Lady of Moth or whatever. That would probably be mine.
In some
no, I don't
situations,
want to.
too.
I want to continue to call you Duke of whatever.
I know.
So, what was I gonna say?
So they have
they
spend like a week. Yeah, but they spend a week doing all the stuff, and then they have some super good sex that you get to watch, and it is wonderful.
It is very good.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of like throughout the week they kind of graduate
a little
to
bit further,
higher levels of nakedness until they're totally naked the last day, and it's very, very good.
Oh.
But every night, so the first thing is Lady of Catherine notices that one of her maids is really good at embroidery and drawing stuff. So she's like, we should train her to be a lady's maid before the others, even the ones that are more experienced, because she's probably better at the domestic arts. And the head of the household is like, that's not a good idea because these other maids have been here longer and they're going to get upset. And also the one that's good at embroidery is like the daughter of the butler. So they're going to think that it's nepotism and it's not a good idea. And Lady Catherine's like, well, I do things based on merit, not based on who's been here the longest, and we're going to do it. So then the other maid, the one that was not promoted, is the one that goes in and like takes off their dresses. What?
Yeah. Narayan is Catherine's lady's maid.
Narayan. Okay.
I think that's how I said it.
Yes. And every night, Catherine calls Lucy in to take off her dress and is like, Narayan, I don't need you. And it's rough. So then the last night where they're like, had sex and all the orgasms and they're having a great time. And
they fall asleep and then they don't wake up.
Forgets to go back to her room. And then they're in the bed, totally naked. Their boobs are out in England times.
They are.
What's
boobs
her face?
And twats everywhere.
Well, just boobs, I think, because there's like covers. I just don't. Melody. Listen, I was doing really well.
So Narayan comes in the morning and
she sees
everything, and she's like, "Oh, gotta go. I'll be back in like a little while." Oh, so then Lucy goes back to her room and she's like, "Hey, we're not doing anything wrong. We're okay. Like we're fine." And so she goes back to her room. Narayan comes back a little bit later, and she gets her ready for the day as she always does. And then they sort of chat it out, and she's like, Can I ask you an impertinent question? You know, were you doing all of this just to hide the affair? Uh-huh. And she's like, yeah, completely. That's why I was doing this.
I'm fucking ladies.
And this poor woman, she has to basically breathe in and out of a paper bag. Yeah, she's so relieved because she thought she was getting fired. Slowly getting fired.
Yeah.
Oh. And then missed opportunity here on both sides. Because Catherine's like, hey, do you make as much money as your other contemporaries? And she's like, in some ways, but in some ways not. And then she turns down a raise because a quote unquote good servant is supposed to have discretion anyway. And I'm like, that's what the man tells you to keep you down. Take the money.
Yeah, take that money. Actually, you should probably blackmail her. Like work on blackmailing. Blackmail more. Yeah.
Right? Or just take the money. And then also, Catherine, if she said no to the money, still give her the money.
Also, apparently, Narayan is a woman of color. And the girl that she promoted is a white girl. So she also thought that was the reason.
Yeah. Catherine. That line, that beautiful line where she was like.
Yeah, I can't find it. I've been searching the entire time.
I think.
Yeah.
I think, she says that look
they
out
told
for
me
girls
to watch
especially.
Out. Yeah.
Especially if they have a fair complexion or a fairer complexion. Oh, it's so heartbreaking and beautiful.
When I was looking for that line and I never found it, I did find a line from the sex the night before where Catherine gives a classic Highlander finger banging to Lucy first. It's an England Times one, but it made her sing like a bagpipe, so I believe that it was a Highlander one.
It was strikingly similar.
But then, so Lucy's like, wow, you're like pretty talented at that. Like, good job, Catherine. And she's like, I learned a thing or two in my 15 years of marriage about sex. And then Lucy starts to move to go down on Catherine.
Yep. And Catherine's like, where are you going?
What the fuck are you doing? Yeah. Where are you going? Like, she literally says, where are you going? What is happening? And Lucy's like, oh, was this not one of the things that you learned in your 15 years of marriage? I just thought that was the funniest thing.
And then is it funny or is it one of the biggest injustices you have ever read? It's
England Times Melody. Who knows? Who knows? Don't at us. I'm sure it was a big deal in England Times. Everybody's going down on everybody. Don't at us. I'm sure it was all over the place, and it was a huge injustice that George never went down on Catherine.
Goddamn George Sinde, or however the fuck you say his name. I don't know. All
right.
Okay, so now, Lucy's new maid, the one that been getting trained up and she's good at the embroideries. She spangles up a gown for her.
Yes.
And then she comes in and Catherine really likes it. But then she's sort of like, ooh, your former lover was really good at that embroidery stuff. Like, you look great. And Lucy's like, oh, no,
this is Eliza.
Yeah. So then they go to this scientific lecture. It is a big deal. They meet Mr. Frampton there and Mrs. Kelmarsh, and they find out after the lecture. Oh, they get totally snubbed by the Polite Society of Scientists or whoever.
The Impolite Society.
Yeah. Those
good joke, Aaron. Good job. Sick burn, Aaron.
So they go to tea with Mr. Frampton afterwards, and they find out that the Impolite Society's translation is a goddamn travesty joke town, and that Mr. Frampton quit because the legacy hire totally sucks, and he refused to budge on some Newtonian things.
Well, it's kind of important because he says so it's like he wants to use Newton's stuff for the
instead
thing,
of this leprechaun math.
Wanted to use the you say the leprechaun path?
Listen,
yes,
it starts.
He
with
wanted to go down the leprechaun path, and then. But the point is that Wilby didn't want to do
that kind of wait. I'm sorry, and like the leprechaun to the Libadician math or whatever it is,
guys,
that is a
I just want to be clear
math.
to our Irish listeners, this has nothing to do with Ireland. I want you to understand that it's not like there was an Irish theory and an English theory, and we're calling the Irish theory the leprechaun theory.
No, that's not what's
a
happening.
word that looks like leprechaun. It's
I
like
think
the
it's actually
calamari
German,
party.
maybe.
I don't know. But he wanted to use this other thing as a foundation of maths, and
it's a European thing, not a UK thing. And so he's like,
Wilby
how
insisted
can you use? Oh.
Because Newton's in English. Blech.
Yeah, right. So
anyway,
he's like, we have to use this
Newtonian to spite
math.
fucking Frampton because he's a Saint Dominique guy.
I know. Ugh. Who knows?
So anyway, Frampton quit. And now Wilby's the only one working on it. And apparently he's a disaster. So the whole shebang is falling apart over at the Impolite Society. But Lucy's just cooking along and making a great translation.
That's right. And Lucy's like, we're also getting these snippets of her talking to Catherine about like verb conjugations and trying to get it right because the original is so brilliant. She wants to do it justice while also expanding upon it so the layperson can understand. Like, she's so passionate, you guys. So then Lucy takes Catherine to a painting exhibition. Damn it.
Painting expedition. Also, Catherine got like a little jealous because like Frampton and Lucy are like really hitting it off and they're being like science and there's like they're like volleying science words back and forth and then Catherine's like, many young ladies find Mr. Frampton very handsome, and Lucy literally waves her hand and is like, yes, handsome, but do you think he's wrong? Do you think the science? Do you think the stars?
Yeah.
Anyways, funny.
So then Catherine, meanwhile, is like, should we go to this painting exhibition? God damn it. Because like, you're going to be introduce me to your brother, ?
It doesn't super matter, but they go to the Friendly Philosophical Society first.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And we just want to mention that there's a ladies' Friendly Philosophical Society that meets in the back of a bookstore, and it's very cute and it's very good, and they sit on their little tuffets, and they're just, what do you call them? I'm just
ladies who lunch. They are awesome.
What was the book we read by Anne Gracie that had like the name for the ladies who just like eat food and talk about books and men? It was like muffins.
No idea.
It was muffins. They're all muffins back there, and they all just like eat their little cakes.
That wasn't
and
from the Anne Gracie book.
Yeah,
it was from the Anne Gracie book.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm 100% sure of it.
You're right.
All right. Anyway,
so then Catherine sees Lucy talking to this big dude, and she's like, what's going on with that big dude? And then her brother is like, I'm thinking there might be getting married someday, that big dude and my sister. And Catherine's like, oh gosh,
she grew up with him.
Yeah. And so
they look at
but meanwhile
paintings.
They're chatting over there about the fact that he is her Harkenbroken is what I tried to say just now.
Harkenbroke?
I don't know why.
Listen, guys. Okay, so there's this guy there, Mr.
What's
Violet.
My problem?
And
Peter Violet.
I'm having the same problem if you haven't noticed. Mr. Violet, he's a childhood friend of Lucy's, and her brother had always thought that they would eventually get married. Turns out he's super duper gay. And really,
and
he wants to be
over
with
that.
this other guy who just dumped him, who's also a painter. So they're
yeah.
over there looking at his paintings, and she's like, wow, you're so talented. And he's like, yeah, I'm super gay, and I love this guy, and it sucks. And she's like, me too, I'm super gay, and I love this lady, and it sucks.
Even that is super poetic, because he talks about this red in the middle of his painting, being like, I'm so glad that you saw it today because the red's gonna fade. And she's like, why would you use that color if it's gonna fade? And he's like, because it's the right color.
Right red. It was the only.
And then
red
as he's talking about
it's
his
a metaphor,
heartbreak,
you guys.
She looks over at him and she goes, the red will fade. Your heartbreak will fade. Oh my God.
It's metaphors.
So anyway, Catherine tries to go away because she's worried about her relationship with Lucy. And she's like, Catherine has come out of a very long emotionally abusive relationship. Yes. So she's very insecure about this thing that is good because when this all started, she was really excited about the fact that they wouldn't be able to have any permanent relationship like a marriage, because her last marriage went so badly that she just can't even fathom it. And now, since she likes Lucy so much, she's sort of lamenting the fact that they can't have any sort of permanent legal arrangement.
Right. Also, while at the art gallery, Mr. Frampton invents the computer. I don't want to talk any more about it, but he does.
Nope, I don't want to do that.
They just throw in that Frampton invented the computer at...
Yeah.
You guys. Kind of like what's his face invented triage. They just threw it and he invented computers. Did it.
So then
Done.
she also, Catherine runs into the printer, the imprinter, and they talk about how they could get things printed. And they also talk about how what she's doing is not actually art, because she's just an engraver. She does reproductions of things. And so she's like, it's not art. And Catherine's like, are you kidding me? That's totally art. And yet, every time, spoiler alert, Lucy tries to convince Catherine that she is an artist of silks and skeins, Catherine's like, no, I am not. That's not art. Anyway.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful on the way home. They're talking about that. And Lucy says, well, you make art. Your embroidery is art. And Catherine's like, no, it's not. No one accepts my embroidery as art. And like, you know, having this conversation. And Lucy's like excited. And she's like, why can't you try to change those parameters? Why can't you try to persuade them that embroidery could be counted as art on its own merits? And Catherine just like is at her wit's end. And she's like, because I am tired, Catherine cried. She could hear the burn of unshed tears in her own voice as the words tore themselves from her throat. I am tired of twisting myself into painful shapes for the mere scraps of respect or consideration. Tired of bending this way and that in search of approval that will only ever be half granted.
I have that exact thing highlighted.
Are you tired? I'm tired. I'm tired too.
Oh, I'm tired too, you guys. Injustice.
And it's not even England times anymore.
No, it's not. It's all the times. Then...
Oh, she's like, hey, Mr. Violet's super gay. Nothing to worry about there. Yeah.
And then Lucy says, so Catherine's like, I'm afraid of losing you. And Lucy says that's never going to happen. And then they go into the house and they have a little bit of sex to seal the deal. And Catherine gives her that traditional countess finger banging that we all know and love.
Is that what we're calling it now?
I think so. I think
it's
appropriate.
Yeah.
And then Lucy's like, now you. And she's like, no, later. Because she's a giving lover, that Catherine.
Yes. So then they go to that print shop and they work out a deal that they will print whenever Lucy gets done with the book. They're going to print the book. It's a delightful little chapter, but not a lot of plot happens there.
For only these reasons. One, Lucy gets an extra hard competence boner again because watching Catherine in the business world is just super hot. Two, Catherine also stipulates that because she's going to be putting up all the money, that there's going to be a higher return for the author, but she doesn't say that she's going to accept the higher return. She negotiates the higher return for Lucy. So Lucy's going to make any monies that come off of this book.
Totally. Also, Lucy gets Prussian blue all over her, and like Prussian blue is like so interesting as like a paint color, and also like for its medicinal uses, and like you need it for an antidote when you get rat poisoned. Did you know about this?
No.
Yeah, if you get rat poisoned, bing boom bong, Law and Order with Aaron. Here we are. Bird chirp. If you get rat poisoned, you need Prussian blue to be your antidote. And they only have it in like very few places in the world because like so few people get rat poisoned. And
is that like
they have it.
Is it an ink or a powder? What are we talking about here?
I don't know or understand, but they used to make the paint out of Prussian blue, whatever it is. And so that's why it's called that. But like it's not anymore. Now it's just a color. But it used to be actually made out of the substance. And it's very rare and it's stockpiled in very few places in the US in case there's like some kind of a mass poisoning event. Isn't that crazy? So it's like a rush to get the Prussian blue. I saw it on Dateline one time.
So what you're telling me is that if I ever get rat poisoning, I'm going to be pooping blue for a while. It's good to know.
No, that's the opposite. No, it's the antidote.
That's
and they have to go. I'm saying you're fucked if you get ever rat poison.
Oh. Yeah,
because it's very expensive and it's very far.
Shoot.
Yeah. It was a whole episode of Dateline. It was very interesting. Anyway.
All right.
Bing boom bong. Prussian blue. It's all over her arm now.
Yeah.
Spilled it.
And, well, And so she goes back to her lady's maid, and she's been getting hints that this new trained up lady's maid is like having a very hard time in the household. And then she starts thinking like, man, the household has kind of gone to shit since this girl got promoted. And then she finds out that the girl likes drawing more than she actually likes embroidery.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes and she talks to Catherine, and she's like, hey, when we were at the print shop, I found out that they need another apprentice for engraving. I think Eliza would be a much better fit there. We should do that.
Mm-hmm.
And she agrees, but only because Catherine takes it as like, of course she doesn't want to do embroidery because it's so pedestrian and worthless, just like me.
Yeah.
And so she agrees to let the lady's maid go do art stuff because, of course, she wouldn't want to do embroidery stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
awful.
Man, I can't wait for the arc when Catherine, gets her confidence and realizes how much she's worthwhile.
It's coming around the corner. I mean, we're like an hour and a half in, so we've got to move fast. So it's going to be quick.
Oh, balls.
All right. So then Lucy gets a letter from Mr. Hawley, the president of the society that like pushed all our papers on the floor. Remember him?
The most impolite one.
Yeah. So she goes to his greenhouse. He's feeding his Venus flytraps. I can really imagine this in a movie, like him like cutting his little mealworms and like putting them in the traps and like it's gross.
And like making her wait in the sweat balls heat when he could just be, I don't know, on time for tea. Fucker.
Yeah. And he tells her that he knew the whole time that she was this smart and that she was doing all the astronomy math for her dad. Because he knew that the dad wasn't writing back, so it must have been her. He's known the whole time. And she's like, well, then why did you fuck me over so bad in front of all those people? And she's like, well, he says, like, I knew that the society wouldn't accept you, which is like so shitty.
Ridiculous.
And so she says, oh, so you shut me out for my own protection? And he's like, precisely, nodding and smiling. Oof.
So basically, during this whole interaction, he asks her to come onto the team, do all of the work for no money.
Yeah, because Wilby's doing nothing. So she's like, he wants her to fix Wilby's translation.
And he wants her to do that for no share in the profits, no official credit, and no fellowship as part of the polite society of scientists or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is one of the best takedowns I have read in an England Times book.
It's very good.
Cuts him to smithereens verbally.
Yes.
And it's lovely.
She's like, why would I stop my current translation to go back and fix your guy's translation? You're going to put his name on the cover of the book, right? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I did think that.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, and he's going to get all the profits, right? Like, I already know where this is going.
Right.
And she says it's quite impossible for her to take his offer.
That's right. Well, especially I love the line where she goes, so his failure gets more credit or something than my success.
And then he shit talks Catherine because he's like, she's like, listen, Catherine's paying me. We have a publisher. There's no way I would take this shitty deal. And he's like, listen, just so you know, I was friends with George, her husband. And he pretty much had to go on his hands and knees every day begging her for money for his science because she's such a bitch. He doesn't say bitch because it's England.
He calls her capricious and a bunch of other things that are...
Yeah. And those are the words for bitch in England times.
That's the one.
And all this makes Lucy understand is, George must have married her for her money. Yeah. And then when she wanted to have any control over what she was spending her money on, he must have lost his shit on her all the time. Because she's been seeing these like little indicators of the abusive relationship throughout. Great chapter.
So she goes home and tells Catherine all about it. And Catherine's like, oh man, he should have really offered you the money so that like at least it was a choice. And Lucy sits down and takes her hands in the way that only Lucy can. And Lucy's like, it's not about the money, or it's not just about the money. It still wouldn't have been a choice because he tossed my papers on the floor when you gave me space and a place, free reign to just like go where my mind would take me.
You knew that I would be good at this. It's so good. And then Catherine tells her that she loves her.
Yes.
It's one of those things where they're like bickering and like Catherine's trying to say it and like it's too long to read. But Catherine has to blurt out, like, I'm trying to tell you that I love you, and you're not letting me. And then she's like, no, you have to say it back. And Lucy's like, I love you too. It's very cute.
It's so good. Okay, so they exchange I love yous, and then Catherine says, loving someone should be the start of something. And Lucy's like, what are we starting? She's like, not a marriage. And then Catherine says, something better, something that belongs to us. And then the chapter ends with Lucy thinking that she could almost believe her.
Mm-hmm. And then Lucy's done with the book.
Book is published.
She's sending it. She's sure it's terrible. She's sure it's full of rotten and clumsy substitutions and inelegant phrases, and it's bad. But she's just got to let it loose.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my notes are, book is published. Huge success. I'm crying. Money. Dresses.
Well, so the book club that meets in the back of that, the friendly, polite, the friendly whatever society of ladies on their tuffets,
society of awesomes,
they're going to discuss it. So they've put this book out in the world, and then they have been waiting for the meeting of them to kind of soften the blow if it's bad, and talk about it amongst friends who read it. None of those ladies could fucking get the book because it was so fucking popular.
Well, wait. So as soon as they were like, we couldn't get the book, I was like, what did Mr. Hawley do? How did he bar the book from getting into bookstores? It's not that, you guys. It's because so many people have purchased
I was sure of it. I did not have that thought because I am so confident in Lucy and what she can do. And I knew it. I knew it.
It has nothing to do with my confidence in Lucy. How dare you?
Sounds like you thought that no one bought her book.
No, it sounds like I thought the man was trying to keep her down once again. Anyway.
So these ladies, there's a really cute little moment where they had to all share the same book, and one of them wrote notes in the margins, and then the other one erased all her notes because she thought it was so despicable that she wrote notes in a brand new book. It's very Romancelandia.
It's
okay.
really cute.
All right, moving on.
So then with the monies that got to Lucy and only Lucy, she's like, I don't have to wear any morning clothes anymore. So they go and they get dresses together. And Catherine shows her a bunch of her own designs because she's like, would you let me embroider one of them as a gift to you?
Yes, Catherine. Yeah. How could I not?
That's not even a question.
Yeah, how did you ask? Get that needle going.
So then they're walking around after going to the modiste, and they see this weird painting in a shop. So they go over to the window, and Lucy realizes it is a painting of her.
Kind of.
Yeah, well, it's her face, right? It's her likeness, but it is not her. She's in this wispy, willowy gown, and she's got a lit lantern by her side, and she's not even looking through the telescope. And there's a ghost of her dad involved. It's a whole thing. And she realizes that Stephen tried to ride her coattails.
Her brother.
Yeah, by painting a quasi-likeness of her in the worst way possible. And he names it L. McKelney or whatever, Lucy McKelney. He outs her as a lady, you guys.
Yeah, she had used her initials so that no one would know she was a lady, but now everybody knows.
She used her initials because she didn't want the stigma of being a lady to get in the way of somebody else's work.
Sure.
Because in her mind, she's like,
she's
I
just
could
the translator.
Sabotage myself. Yes.
And there's all these errors, the stars are wrong in it, and it's just not good. And he's beautied her up and made her boobs bigger and her face rounder.
So gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so people are awful. They're like, I feel deceived now. Everybody that was lauding the accomplishment is like, it's terrible and tainted now because vaginas were involved.
Yeah, and there's a nasty cartoon that's going around where instead of staring at the stars, she's staring at the stars that are boobs. They're boob stars? Is that a thing on She's Gay? Or is that what
I have no idea.
I could not. I was like, wait, how did I know?
Yeah,
did
I was did
the
they out
butler
her?
say something? But I don't know. I think it's just haha, ladies.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Where ladies should only think about lady things like boobs.
Ugh. Boobs? We think about our own boobs?
Guess. I think about my boobs.
Well,
all
jokes
the time.
on them because Lucy is thinking about boobs a lot of the time, it turns
They're
out.
hot. They are generous bosoms. So
they go to the country.
Yeah, they go to her house. She takes the Countess to her humble abode. And while they're there, they run in to Pris and Harry on the shore. you guys.
So that's fine. He invites them over for dinner. They don't go the first time, but they do take his invitation the second time. It goes pretty well. I don't remember anything.
There's this whole fossil metaphor that is the most beautiful thing I've ever read out loud.
There's a great
you should read it.
Just a slamming fossil metaphor that you guys are going to check it out. But I mean, other than that, nothing really happens. Everybody's like really polite and stuff.
That's not true. Okay, so first of all, with the fossil metaphor,
just call me a liar to my face.
We keep it real here, right?
I guess.
So Catherine's feeling weird about it because Priscilla's really pretty, and like it's the first time Lucy's seen her or whatever. And Lucy does the whole, she tells her that loving her is totally different. And then while they're at dinner with What's His Nuts, Catherine finds out that Harry knows about Priscilla and Lucy, and he loves Priscilla anyway. And so that's one thing. Also, I just have to read this one section because this is also where Lucy gets Catherine to agree to do an embroidery pattern book. And so Catherine's like, oh my God, I could do this like scientific botanical pattern situation. And then Lucy goes, all it took to convince you was a kiss or two. Lucy's gaze was rich with satisfaction, almost smug, and an edge of hunger still waiting to be sated. Imagine what I could do with a whole night. I'll bet I'll have you calling yourself an artist by dawn. She flicked a hot tongue against Catherine's earlobe. Never. But Catherine made a throaty, wordless sound of pleasure and arched her neck for her. Ooh,
is that it?
Stop it with your throaty sound.
That was my throaty sound. That was my throaty sound of pleasure. Is that what it was? Sorry, guys,
it was like that. Yeah.
Then they do some telescope stuff on the outside. We've got to go. We got to be faster.
I know.
We've got to
they
be
do
faster.
Some telescope stuff.
They do some telescope sex
after that
outside.
After that hot telescopery. After the astronomies, Catherine decides to be bold. And she goes, you've been giving me instructions all evening, she purred against Lucy's ear. You're going to continue instructing me. You'll tell me where to touch, how fast, how slow, how long, and when you want more.
Melody.
She grazed her teeth. Erin,
we do not have time.
We do. I'm sorry, you guys.
I'm sorry.
Okay, wait, just one more line. So then
where were they?
She goes, and if I like the manner of your asking, I'll do every single thing until you're too well fucked to ask for anything else.
She did say fuck. It was nice.
My God.
But I also like that Lucy asked her to like tear off her dress and she was like, oh, no.
Yeah,
you will unbutton the buttons and carefully. Thank you. Which I really identified with.
It's a very Erin moment.
Yes. And be careful.
So then they have that good sex, you know? Oh, boy. Okay, and then their pillow talk is also wonderful. They sort of bicker back and forth about like flashes of inspiration and the fact that art requires it, but science does too. And Catherine reminds Lucy that she was her muse to expand the text, and it's a whole thing. And then Lucy's like, well, I wanted to do that so that maybe I could set you free and you could like science and do your own thing. And then Catherine says that she's going to try to think about herself as an artist for a while. And she says, so you see, you did set me free after all.
It's beautiful. Listen, the next thing that happens is Stephen, the brother, he comes, he apologizes to her. He's so sorry. He's sorry. Listen, we forgive him. It's fine. He does listen, we do not have time for Stephen. He's sorry and we forgive him. So then,
and he's also a little bit worried about the patronage situation.
He is
because of the controls.
It doesn't matter
but
because
that doesn't
we
matter.
know that they fucking. So then,
doesn't matter.
Chris, the ex-girlfriend, she writes a letter to.
She sends a letter.
Yeah, and Catherine
this dick
opens it because she's worried.
At first, it's an accident, right?
Kind of.
She's been going through her
mail.
She
reads it. Which is one of the things that her husband did to her.
Yeah, but she also got Lucy's consent because she didn't want to get hate mail.
Listen, I'm all for Catherine, but I'm saying she did this. So then she reads it.
But then she reads it. That's my issue.
Yeah.
She opened it, that's one thing. But then she read it. Like
we're
Catherine.
on the same page, Mel. So then she reads it. And she's like, it's a letter from Pris. And Pris wants to come over for tea and hang out. And she's like, it's just been too long. just like to come over for tea sometime. I'm going to be in the city. Like, we just haven't visited. So Catherine's like devastated because she thinks that Pris and Lucy are going to hook up again, but she also can't really fault Pris. Like, Pris didn't do anything that was like super bad or anything. So then Lucy reads it and she's like, oh, this bitch, how dare she?
And it flips the table.
She flips the fucking table. And she's like...
Metaphorically.
She wads it up and throws it, which is England times
also
flips a table. And
that's what I'm saying.
Apparently there's a code in there that says, I still love you from Pris. The first line of every letter. So then Lucy's really mad, but she's like, I need to talk to her. And Catherine's like,
not in my house.
Yeah, not in my house. And she's like, I need to use your house because it's like a private conversation amongst lesbians in England.
And then Catherine's like,
we cannot do this outside. And she's like, yeah, I get it.
She's like, God damn it, you're right. Fine. Okay, fine.
I'm going to go to the printer and talk to them about maybe doing some of my embroidery things.
I will make myself scarce.
Yes.
But then she retires early, you guys, because she's quote unquote not feeling well.
Yeah. Oof.
She's so worried about this.
Lucy could have been clear with Catherine that she's about to tell Pris to fuck off. Or at least that they're going to come to some kind of understanding where Catherine believes that Lucy and Pris are about to get back together.
Yeah, but listen to me. If you were in Lucy's shoes, you see this letter from an ex-lover, you wad it up in England Times and throw it across an England Times ballroom. You metaphorically flip a table. You don't think she understands that you're on the same page? Like, you don't think she knows that you are upset about this?
These
and
ladies
you are
just
not...
have a lot of confidence problems.
They do.
So Catherine basically goes to the print shop and they love all her designs. They love all her embroidery. They love all her like designs for dresses. They want to sell her dresses.
They call it genius.
Genius. She's crazy flattered and so excited.
Yeah.
Back at the house, Pris comes over for tea.
This bitch.
Pris... Spoilers from the beginning of the podcast.
Everybody.
Pris is a bitch.
She wants to get back together. And she doesn't even want to, like, say sorry.
She's like, oh, you can be my affair. And I assumed that you knew that, like, I was just going to marry this guy and then we were still going to be together. And Lucy's like,
all you had to do was keep a cool head. How dare you?
You never said that to me. And also, like, no, not now. Because I'm in love with somebody else who's better.
Yeah.
And then
Pris comes for Catherine's jugular. She's like, oh, you don't think that I see that she's a dried up husk version of me? Oh. Yeah. And then Lucy's like, real mad about that. And then Pris is like, oh, and also, are her titties as firm as mine? I don't remember what Pris says, but it's like,
that was not part of it. But she does say this whole thing of like, oh, she had a husband, and I'm sure that spreading her legs was a chore for him. And I'm sure she says that she's pretty sure Catherine doesn't masturbate, which is like a real weird accusation and like probably
she
false.
calls her like frigid and
yes. And so like, basically
passionless. How dare she?
Oh, we forgot to say that Breakbill's the butler, which is not his name, puts them in the coldest room in the house.
Yeah.
Because he clearly knows what's going on between Lucy and Catherine and believes that Lucy might be betraying Catherine in her own house.
Boy, does he butler the shit out of her. Yeah. You know?
And then they have this very loud argument.
So as their argument is getting louder and louder, Lucy's like, oh my God, I'm falling into old habits. Like, I don't have to engage with this. I am better than this now. I didn't just come here to run away from you, Priscilla. I've been building something. Priscilla says she calls it her little book. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You get the fuck out. And so that's what Lucy does. Priscilla. She walks to the door and she opens it and she's like, good day, madam. And yeah. And then she's super excited because the butler has been lurking outside like butlers do. Mm-hmm. And he's like all ready with her coat and bonnet and gloves and everything else.
And a warm drink for Lucy. Because she's like, hey, after Lady Catherine got yelled at by her husband, she always liked to have like a warm lemon brandy drink. Yum.
Yeah.
Where do I get a butler?
Right?
I need
the recipe.
Somebody standing there with a warm lemon brandy drink every time I am upset. That's what I want.
I know. I won't even make him wear a cummerbund.
No, I won't. Just be there. Just stand there.
You can be casual butler.
Just stand there. You know? And also escort out people of my home that I want to leave. That's well.
That's right.
And also probably everything else butlers do. Probably all the duties. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear it's nice. Okay.
So
next thing that happens is the article, is it not?
No, madam. Catherine comes home and enters the library. Aaron, they break up. This is important.
Oh, yeah. They break up. both of their confidences is real low. They break up. Guys.
And so they sort of like accidentally break up with each other. Lucy thinks that Catherine wants her to leave. Catherine thinks that she's like clipping Lucy's wings. It's this whole terrible situation.
Big misunderstanding.
They basically agree by the end of it that Lucy's going to move out. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. So then Lucy's like, I have to get out of this house. She already had a bro date with Mr. Frampton to go to a society science chemical lecture. And so...
So while she's there, she finds out that Wilby, the asshole.
Yeah, because people are giving her all the dirty looks and snickering and stuff.
He wrote an article that was basically like, there's evidence that Lucy did not write the translation. Really, she found a translation that her dad had already written.
How dare you, you nepotism, you nepotist.
As if he's not capitalizing on the work of his uncle. Anyways. Yeah. So he calls her an imposter.
And so Lucy's like, oh my God, my life is over. Yeah, because this is going to be a dark cloud.
Whatever I do in the future, this article will be out there. Especially now the nephew's a full fellow in the society.
Yeah.
So
a society she doesn't have access to because it's impolite.
It's horrible. So then Frampton.
So Mr. Frampton,
the hero,
grabs her and he's like, hey, Lucy, you okay? Like, you all right? I have this idea. Because the whole time Mr. Frampton's been like, hey, Lucy, you should send your text to Oleron. Like, you should include this person. You should do this. And she wouldn't do it. So he's like, I took it upon myself and I sent your translation to Oleron. And then we started a correspondence.
Mm-hmm. And I want to bring Oleron here to have the two of you debate. And that will show everybody at the society that you are for real. And also, I think I know a secret about Oleron, and I think it will benefit you. And Lucy's like, what is that secret? And Frampton's like, I'm not telling you that secret. And then also, meanwhile, I don't remember when it happened, but Lucy had this revelation about all of these different women that were helping men do
I know
work.
When it happened. So she goes home, and Catherine hears her clanking around in the library late into the night.
Yeah, she's on the ladder like Belle.
Yeah, and Catherine is standing at the door trying to figure out the mood of the person behind it, and she's like, I'm in the same situation. Oh, this person is in a bad mood, and like, the person no longer loves me.
Books.
But it's just like her husband because she thinks that Lucy doesn't love her anymore.
Yeah. I know.
She goes in, and Lucy's like, the injustice! And she's like, she finds all of these initial letters of authors in decades of this impolite fucking society's text.
Ladies who have been doing the science, and the men have been taking credit. And then one of them is Mr. Hawley's sister. And she really discovered the goddamn comet, right?
Yeah.
I think it was a comet. She's the one that discovered the goddamn comet in this book.
Yeah.
And then Hawley took all the credit, and she finds a letter that was written by the sister that Hawley published as if it was his own. Asking to be in the society. And then he published it like he wrote it, but really she wrote it. She wanted to be in the society, and then he didn't endorse her to be in it.
How dare.
The worst.
The injustice of the whole world upon women's. All right, go ahead, Erin.
So then they get back together. They make out. They're back together now.
Yeah.
They're good.
Oh, because Catherine says they thought that they were satellites orbiting each other, and like they couldn't really orbit the same
bodies,
thing. But instead,
bodies,
they're two stars, and the stars, magnetism
drawn to each other because the gravity.
Fixed. They're so and they're on different paths, but they can be right next to each other forever. Yeah. That's the one. That's so there.
Okay. So then she goes to the meet. So they got Oleron is coming to the thing. And they're going to make Oleron a fellow, a special foreign fellow, so that there's a link to the thing so that there can be a presentation. So then they go to the night where Lucy's going, and also Lucy wears a dress that is just fantastic, and it's made by Catherine.
Yeah.
And she wears it to the society meeting where she's going to debate Oleron. And guess what, motherfuckers? Oleron's a lady, and not only a lady, but a lady of color. And when Mr. Hawley finds out, he loses his shit, and so does everybody else in the room.
And I'm crying.
So then they have this dinner, and Mr. Wilby is at the dinner. So they don't know. Mr. Hawley knows, but no one else knows right now. So all these guys are waiting for Oleron to like come in and stand up, and they're at the dinner. And Wilby turns to Lucy and says, hey, is the food always so good at these? oh, I'm sorry, you've never been to one of these before and never will.
Fucker.
Yeah. And I forget, he says like tonight's a special night or something. And Lucy asks why or something like that. And he's like, well, we've never had attendance by an imposter before, referring to her. And she laughs and says, of course you have.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a real burner line. So then they're like, everybody welcome Oleron. And then this lady in a turban stands up in front of everybody. She's got like a glitter gown. She looks fantastic. So they do their little debate.
And her brain is amazing.
Yeah, they've got great brains, you guys. And like Oleron says that she found an error in Lucy's work, and Lucy asked her some questions about it, and we find out that Oleron actually found an error in her work because of Lucy's translation, because she wasn't clear enough in her work, and their brains mishmouth.
Well, and Oleron's like, what would you do if you did find out about the mistake? And Lucy's like, of course I would reprint my book.
And they're just like, I love your brain.
I love your brain.
So then Mr. Hawley comes up and he's like, afterwards, you know, and it's not like, guys, it's not like everybody like gives roaring standing ovation at the end of this and is like, we accept women. We're glad they're here. It's not like that, but it is at least a small victory for Lucy. And Mr. Hawley comes up to her afterwards and says, it seems like I owe you an apology. And Lucy's like, how about you apologize to your fucking sister? How about that?
Yeah, you
And
fucker.
Holly's like, well, how did you know? And she's like, because I read a letter because you published it. That's how I know, because you published it.
Yeah. And she wanted to be in the polite society.
Yeah.
And you were impolite about it.
So now that we have a lady member, how about you endorse your sister? And he's like, yeah, okay, I guess I will. And then they go home or whatever.
Yeah.
And Catherine's like, hey, I've been thinking about... One of the things where they broke up was Catherine was like, we can think of an arrangement where I can give you a stipend and we can share finances and it would be like a marriage. And Lucy was very offended by that.
Lucy shouted, I don't want to be dependent on you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure break bills hurt her.
Well, not to mention that it made Catherine just like curl up into herself because that's what her husband would do. He would shout and then punish her for weeks.
It was rough, you guys.
Over money.
So Catherine's like, I've got this idea. I sent letters to all of those initial ladies, all those scientists that were overshadowed. And I'm starting to get responses. Who's married, who has kids, who's where, who's working on what. And I've decided that I want to set up a fund that would be run by me and you. And it would be a fund for ladies who are passionate about sciences and arts and would fund them to do their work, whatever they wanted their work to be. Not the work of the men next to them.
That's right.
But their work. And let them do free reign like she did for Lucy.
Yeah. And Lucy's like, wow, you really got to think about that because that sounds like a lot of work. That sounds like a big undertaking.
And Catherine's like, yeah, it'll probably take us the rest of our lives and we'll have to work really closely together and probably like maybe live in the same house and probably like share all our finances with each other and probably like smooch all the time and have sex and be ladies who love each other and pretty much wives and partners.
Yeah. And then Lucy goes, all right, so where do we start?
So good. And that's the end. The end.
And that's the
end. It only took us 2 hours.
Oh, worth it. Oh my gosh. This swoony book, Aaron.
It was a good one.
This swooniness.
All right. Do you have lady love?
I'm going to steal one from somebody else. So I got approached by a pal to see if I wanted to like have coffee or lunch or something like that because she was essentially driving through the state and she wanted to make a stop off. And so I was like, yeah, I can totally do that. Like I'll make it work. We can make it happen. So we were having lunch today and she described to me this absolutely wonderful thing she's doing where she's calling it her friendship vacation. She had like a couple of different things that sort of popped up. Like she's going with her mom to the Hamilton tour in a place that is not where they live. So she just decided to take the whole week off and like drive around the tri-state area, visiting friends and doing fun things. And we were chatting about it. And I love a lady vacation. Like more than I think anything else. I think I like it more than like traveling with a romantic partner. I just love it. So yeah, if you can, get yourself a friendship vacation happening. You know, I'm not doing it currently, but damn, does it sound awesome.
Yeah, that sounds really
And I've
good.
certainly done it in the past. Yeah.
I'm just going to co-sign because I'm going on a lady vacation this weekend. Out to a cabin with my book club.
That's right.
Book club, retreat, cabin times. Only I keep calling it a cabin, but I said to David that I'd meet him on the way back from the cabin and we could go do something that's kind of between where we live and the cabin. And he was like, ew, no, won't you be gross? And I was like, no, I won't be gross. And he's like, won't you be dirty from the cabin for 2 days? And I was like, oh, no, it's just like a wood house. Cabin means something different in Alaska.
It does.
It's like, no, I don't want to hang out with you. You'll be gross. No. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, we're renting a house. It's going to be great.
Oh, that's so exciting.
The description of the house said that it was really nice, but it was a little bit too noisy because it's so close to all the nightlife. And we were like, whoop, whoop.
Ooh, ladies.
Yep. Yeah. So there you go.
Yay.
Cosign Lady Vacation.
Yeah.
Do you know where they can find us?
Yeah, I do. On Twitter, it's at heaving_bosoms. On Instagram, it's at heaving bosoms. On Facebook, it's the Heaving Bosoms Podcast. We also have the Heaving Bosoms Podcast Geriatric Friendship Cult, which is our closed group, and it is so happy and wonderful in there. Then we have our website. That is heavingbosomspodcast.com.
Almost updated.
Yeah. And we have our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Heaving Bosoms Podcast. That's where you can get a metric fuck ton of bonus content and gifts and other fun things. We have merch on Redbubble that is totally amazing. And I think that's all the places.
And also, we're a little over halfway through the year. If you go to the website, that's where you can find the HB Reading Embrace, which is our year-long reading, not challenge, but embrace.
That's right.
Okay.
Keep being a badass.
And love yourself as much as you love a goddamn comet. Is that it? Thanks for joining us on the big ol' romance read.
Yeah, and check out the Wicked Wallflowers Club is also releasing their episode on it. I know that for a fact.
Posers. What if we got mad at everybody else's during this book this month? We're like,
how dare you?
We just did that book. It's the Slytherin and me. All right. Okay. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, you. Yes, listener, you. Are you loving the show? If so, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. The 90 seconds you take to say something nice not only helps new people find the show, but it makes me super smile over at HBHQ. Also, I've had a few people ask, and the answer is yes. We are still doing the 5-star bribe. If you leave us a review with 5 stars, then we'll do whatever book you want. We're real deep into the list, though, so it might be a while. Lilas! Okay, back to the show.